Who starts?
Bonjour à tous. Hello, my name is Armand Arnal. I'm the chef of La Chassagnette, and I'm also helping developing all the food business and food laboratory inside the LUMA Foundation in Arles. So it goes from a one-star Michelin restaurant, which is absolutely 100% organic, certified, to the refectory when you're going to have lunch maybe earlier. And the main line is to always make a participation with the local farmers, local production, and try to, besides that, learn social situation by the way of cooking or serving dishes in restaurants.
I think I have my... Oh, that's a Jon one. It will come. Technology always does. Technology is going to beat us today. That's me. Okay, hi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Roberto Flore, and I'm the manager of the Food Lab inside of the DTU SKYLAB. The Food Lab is a new project. I started this new project in September 2018. Before the Food Lab in SKYLAB, I was leading as a head of research and development the organization opened by NOMA called the Nordic Food Lab. And the Nordic Food Lab was basically an organization that was exploring the Nordic territories, and we were looking at the potential of gastronomy in the Scandinavian region. During this process of exploring, I came across a huge gap between who is doing innovation and who is actually creating the technological innovation. And so when you approach industries, for example, and you are proposing something that is extremely innovative, or sometimes something that can be a really big solution for ecosystems of for food systems, one of the major answers is always this is not scalable. And so that was one of my problems when I started to think about what I'm doing here and what I can do for changing this situation. And so I found it really relevant to move from a pure field of innovation into moving actually in the field where technology is actually made. And that's why a food lab inside of a technological university. The way how we are basically promoting technologies, bringing a strong sense of a humanistic approach into the way how we are designing. We think about fail as a sort of process to learn something, and this is why we push our students to be brave and bold when they are basically finding way of solving global challenge. The SKYLAB is basically a space is 1,500 square meters, is expanding now up to 5,700 square meters, and we have several workshops that are offered for free to the students. The students come to the SKYLAB asking for working on projects to actually put their ideas into actions. And we are extremely connected with actions when we're talking about the global goal, for example. We've been already involving in several international projects, working on specifically a project related on solving hunger, or problem related on life below water, or problem related on life on Earth. I can explain later all this project. I think it will be otherwise really said I will take all the stage for. So, but yeah, I will explain a little bit more the projects. I want just to show one number which is really important in terms of being on a hub inside of a university. This is numbers from last year. We have around 96,000 visitors that came actually to see what is going on in SKYLAB. We help more than 157 startups to basically bring to the world the solution that has been developed in SKYLAB. So I think this is a major change when we are empowering new generations to make action and to give them the tools for actually empowering other people in society. Yeah, so that's my project now.
Thank you. I just want to start saying shout out to Armand for all the delicious food we've been eating during the festivities here. It's a beautiful project, and I'm gonna warn you about Roberto. I met him 5 years ago in Copenhagen. You gotta watch out for this guy. He had me eating fried bee larvae and Sardinian cheese with the forbidden black market cheese with the maggots in it. And it was all delicious, you know, so this is my guy for a long time. I'll get a little bit into Ghetto Gastro myself, and a lot of people have been asking me what I do, and they get confused when I say I'm a dishwasher, and about the project Ghetto Gastro in general. So the ethos of Ghetto Gastro from the beginning has been about bringing the Bronx to the world and the world to the Bronx. And we do that in a lot of different ways. Some ways might be making pretty food. You know, we took over the Place Vendôme with the Bronx Brasserie last month for Cartier, so also designing experiences and really recontextualizing who gets to define what something luxurious is and perform those acts. So we like to disrupt these spaces by bringing our culture and distilling it. More pretty food. We call this the Black Power Waffle. So a lot of what we do is really about kind of taking what it means to be from the Bronx. And when people think about the word ghetto, it also has a bad connotation. But for us, it's really a way to locate our people and also indict the systems of neglect that created the conditions in the neighborhoods that we live in. And when we look at some of the art forms that come out of these conditions, like I look at hip hop, for example, which in my opinion is probably one of the most transformative and resonant new art forms of the last 50 years, in the way people kind of connect. You know, when I think about great connectors, I think about food, I think about music, I think about marijuana as well. And this is in addition to creating experiences, we also make products. I forgot who I was talking to about making knives in Japan, and they were like, you're not creating jobs in the Bronx, but I'm like, for us, it's really about sharing and having a conversation. So Ogun is a deity of Orisha from Yoruba land, which is about iron and creation and tools. So we took the idea of Ogun and kind of looked at shogun, like feudal Japan, and also thinking about the people that were making the samurai swords and some of the best blades now. So we wanted to kind of bring these ideas together to create something new. So that's this. And then when you can't really talk about the Bronx without talking about systematic oppression and Reaganomics. So we just did, it's not out yet, so there's like a sneak preview, but we just created a project in Murano, a glass project called Triple Beam Dream, and it's really a narrative about taking despair but making beauty out of despair. So when you look at the crack epidemic, it's 3 stages that glass play a major part in the process of crack manufacturing and consumption. If you're cooking up the crack, you might use a Pyrex heat like Corningware, so the inspiration for the forms are from Pyrex. But then you also, when you package it, you bottle it up in a glass vial, and then at the final stage, when the user smokes it, they smoke it in a glass pipe. And so this is like a biography for me because I kind of came up in the streets, like before I was able to get to this stage, I was like facing 10 years in jail for selling drugs, and my brothers are in jail for drug selling. So it's really like, how do you kind of think about the systematic oppression, what comes from it, but being able to tell the story in a way that's a little bit different. So that's a little bit about the work that I do at Ghetto Gastro. I'm not a chef. I do the dishes and work on projects like this. And now I think we're going to get into the interdependency part. And for me, I think the kitchen, you know, dishwashers are necessary and chefs are necessary. It doesn't work without the brigade. And I'll let Armand kind of wax poetic on this kind of vibe as we kind of jam up here together and talk shit and swallow spit. You know what I mean?
No, but we are talking about interdependency, and I think a restaurant is a good example of interdependency because every section, the dishwasher section, the cooking section, and the service section is something who work independently and then making a huge movement and a huge connection during services. So it's very important for a restaurant to have this open mind to the people who work inside the restaurant and also the people who come as customers. And I think today the role of the chef is not only creating food and searching for the best produce, because it's kind of very easy now to find best produce with all the connection we have, but it's very important to push the boundaries to new techniques like Roberto proposed, and open their minds to what they call a laboratory. You know, before for a chef, a laboratory is something like medical or something then we don't want to go with. And I think now with the example we create at La Chaise Agnette is we growing vegetable, and not only vegetable, try to go also to the wild part of it. Became very essential to have those communication between what we do here with arts and also with techniques. And I think Roberto can speak about that because he has this ability of two words. He's also a chef and a guy who research all the time. So I'm going to give him the speak now.
I'm going to take actually this for talking a little bit more about roles. And it's actually a really interesting topic because, you know, it's really important to talk about roles of people in society, and especially how these roles can be integrated in usual spaces. You know, especially in academia, sometimes when you think about academia, you think about something that is square. You need to have a PhD for working in specific fields and all these kind of things. So. The place that I'm building is actually an interdisciplinary space that allowed people to interconnect between each other. It's a space that is allowing chefs and scientists and artists and policymakers to make together a future desirable scenario. And this is something that when you think about the roles of chefs is changing a lot. It's not anymore somebody that is cooking. It's also somebody that is choosing an economy. It's somebody that is putting on a plate something that has been produced maybe far away that is affecting other economies. And so the role of the chef is also the one to train people how to consume food and how to support better economies. And inside of a university, the role that we are taking is actually shaping the future of engineering by training them into the way of thinking about society. And so one of my major, one of my major goals with engineering will be how we can design social efficiency. You know, in a world where we are designing machines that are think to, produce more, running faster. And I mean, I was fascinated by the talks this morning. We've been discussing about slowing down a little bit, taking again the human rhythm, how we can think in this way, how we can create something that will be positively impacting society, and how as a centers we can actually share this knowledge with different stakeholders around us, but in the main instance, working with students, because students, they need new visions. We need to redefine the future of academia, for example, how we can imagine ourselves 25 years from now in a world where all the information are pretty much available. What we're going to teach to these people? You know, if it's not feeling, if it's not emotion, if it's not something that is really personal, there is no way of talking about future. And so we need this space where art is strongly taking possession of all these kind of mechanical components that become actually beauty. And so that's why, for me, it's extremely fascinating work between, or across disciplines. I, by myself, a chef. I've been working 20 years in this field, but I'm trained as an agronomist. And then I've been working 6 years in this field of innovation. So I think I'm an hybrid person. I don't have even a way of defining myself in that way. So, but I think here we are, all the three of us, we are quite special in this sense, right, guys?
You two are special, not me. But what I will also say is, like, I kind of showed a bit about, like, the cool, sexy stuff that we do, but it's really something, like, I like to say is sneaking the Robitussin and the Kool-Aid. So we do all of the cool, sexy stuff around the world, make money to reinvest in our neighborhood. So I call it the Robin Hood approach, where we really get to do all these fly things, because growing up in the community is like, you didn't have a lot of options or beacons of hope. You know, you could play basketball, sell drugs, rap, you know. There were some doctors and lawyers, but they didn't really stay in the neighborhood. So for me, it's really like, I believe that you can't be what you don't see. So at Ghetto Gastro, we want to make sure we can lead by example and show that there are other possibilities, and also like shed light on the Bronx being the largest food distribution center of its kind. It has the second largest fish market to the Tsukiji market in Japan, but yet it's a huge food desert. So, and then the communities also deal with the pollution and the high asthma rates and diabetes and hypertension as a result of the pollution from the truck traffic of the food going to Manhattan or to other parts of the East Coast. So thinking of how do we use art to create a cultural space and to really think creatively on how to attack these problems, because civically it's not being worked on. So like, how do we use social entrepreneurship to create a new narrative, and also make sure that it's coming from the communities? Because it's a big difference. You know, we're partnering with Massimo Bottura to do a refettorio, which is a soup kitchen in a cultural center, community center in the Bronx. But it's a different thing if Massimo just comes alone and doesn't really know what's going on or know the people. So I think those type of strategic interminglings are important, and contaminations to really move the needle forward and how to make things better. You know, leave things better off than how we got them. You dig?
No, and I think we need to start working without thinking about the restriction, because we're going to have a lot of restriction going on, and it's going to be more and more restriction about the food, about what we are be able to eat and not eating. So if we start to build our thinking and our work with the restriction on the mind, we're not going to be able to create a new way of doing that, a new way of feeding us. So it's very important to take that part of researching before the restriction.
And I also think, like we mentioned, how interdependency plays a role in the kitchen and the efficiencies and all of that technical stuff, but I also look at us providing nourishment. And when you look at the table and when you look at people breaking bread, I think of that as one of the first platforms for social networking, whether you're disagreeing, agreeing, kind of getting to know other people. When I think about growing up in the hood in the Bronx, you go to the local Chinese restaurant, but you see their chopsticks, you know, so you're like, oh, people in some parts of the world eat with sticks, people in the others eat with hands. So it's like windows and little facets into culture that you kind of figure out. Even just thinking about lasagna or Italian-American food, you know, like pizza, like these are different microcosms of other cultures that if you're curious, you can really lean into and learn more about other people. And I think that's the first step in maybe starting to fix this mess, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with this point, especially when you talk about food. For many people, sometimes food is actually the first way of like talking about himself, about their culture, right? And so, in the way how we can accept future, or like a way, like food, or like the way how people eat, or like the diversity of how people eat, is also embracing automatically the culture. And so creating room for discussions. This is why also important, like these social spaces where people is gathering and eating together. You know, we need to design better cities with more food sharing areas, for example. How we talk about avoiding food deserts in cities. How we can, for example, reimagining an industry that is going back to the city and transforming the food culture into something that actually not anymore a point for production, but a point for sharing knowledge. how we can have spaces where art is dominating in the industry, and that place is becoming a pole of attraction. How we can bring benefits to the communities where those industries, for example, are hosts in cities. And this is something that is really important, because food can also manage and can shape a lot these spaces, can speak a lot strongly. And yeah, that's why I'm also extremely fascinated about this project. This project is incredible how it's strongly entering in a community, and it will generate lots of future interactions that are, it's incredible how ambitious and innovative this project is. So, yeah, and that's...
I have a question. How do you measure success?
Who are you asking?
All of you.
Oh.
I mean, if you say, wow, we really did it, I mean, how do you measure that?
Well, I think the way I'm built, I have a really difficult time processing success or what it means, because the needle keeps going. It's like I don't have the privilege to stop and bask in a win. It's like you kind of have to get that win and just go on to the next one. But I think if I was to think about, legacy, which is a weird thing, it's like really just impacting people in a positive way. Reframing narratives and providing counter narratives and the possibilities, actually feeding and nourishing people, creating a hub for creatives and like minds to feel nourished and safe. And then, yeah, just like really thinking about the Bronx as a hub for culture and highlighting some of the good rather than the bad. I think that would be like a trickle in the pond for me.
I mean, that's a big question, because I don't have silver bullets for this question. It's success is really diverse. If I think about how I measure the success of the project of my students, for example, we take fail as a KPI for success. The more you fail, the more you are in a really avant-garde edge field, and it means that you are doing something that is really explorative and new. At the same time, is also like a way of measuring how people is able to realize that their idea was true. And sometimes the students come with an idea and they succeed where everybody was thinking about this is not going to work. And so it's really important to just leave a space. The first space is just for trying, and it's really important to just believe, because from my point of view, we rate too early success sometimes. And we have this kind of way of maybe judging an idea with our parameters, and so for me success is just seeing that a student can come in the lab and can just free try to prove that what he's doing is right, and that's for me is a success ratio.
For me, the reach of the success is to be able to bring joy to the people, then eating our foods, and also to bring joy to the people who learning what we're doing every day. It's not of course, cooking is about techniques. That's what you do with your brain and you organize. But at the really beginning, you have to make food with your heart. So by understanding a produce, by feel it, touching, smell it, taste it, this pleasure, this little sun from, this energy from the sun goes inside to you. I think that's kind of, for me, an achievement to understand that.
Are there any questions?
Can I re-answer mine? Because it came to me.
You can re-answer yours. And then we can take questions.
I can't let y'all smoke me like that. Now, when I think about success, it's really looking at people that might be in the favelas in Brazil, the slums in Mumbai or Nairobi, and hoping that we're able to create an example and a model that they could follow, and people that might be the so-called underclass could really lean in to their creative potential, because we've been creating the dopest art in the world, but it's really about capturing the value of this art and figuring out the infrastructure and ways to do that. So I think if we could crack that nut, and if I see stuff happening in Soweto and all these places around the world, so-called ghettos and slums, where people are able to band together, distill what their culture means, and capture the value and create remnants of that value in the neighborhoods where they come from. I think that's what success looks like for me in a scalable way.
That's planting seeds. Any questions? Questions? Des questions?
So how does the Robin Hood effect work? Because you did Place Vendôme, and then you're talking about Soweto, and obviously you have your home base. So can you actually draw a little bit of an image of how you work with these different communities and these different, social...
I knew you were coming for me. I saw it in your eyes.
Sorry, coming.
Well, in layman's terms, it works like this. So we charge Cartier a lot of money to work with them. And then we think, and then for me, it's about, so the Robin Hood approach, it works two ways. I think the world needs better rich people, so I think we have to become those people. And it's really important for us not to have to ask permission or pitch an idea to someone from a culture that might not really understand the idea where we're coming from. So having those resources to just buy a building, create our own cultural center in the Bronx, do a barbecue for the community with Cool Herc and Screen, whatever, for free. So it's like doing activations in the community, or whether we're doing the mentorship and the internship program that we're funding out of our pocket, because for me, I'm just a hard-headed dude in general, which is why I went to the streets in the first place, because I think I asked my mother for $5. She said no. I tried to get a job. I said, all right, this isn't working. I'm gonna sell this weed. It's really having that independence and the resources to do what we want to do, and not need permission to do it. So that's the Robin Hood approach in layman's terms.
Just a question. I have a good experience with Atelier LUMA about microalgae with astaxanthin. We was only for the coloration of a last year experience. Now today we're working about an extract from spirulina, we call phycocyanin, and our problem now is to have good knowledge about no problem for the healthy food. The problem is now to have the good taste, the good practice, and we need to make together in interdependence these new products, because we have always two things to do. The first is your health, and the second it's the pleasure you need to have the new products we are going to do in organic food for the pleasure of all us, and we need to have a collaboration permanent.
Is that a question?
It's a comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to make one more comment too. I'm really looking forward to have, like, when we talk about interdependence and co-mingling, like, we're not just doing this on stage for like claps. It's like we're really about to jam out. Like, we're gonna have the Ghetto Gastro crew and some kids from the Bronx come out here to do probably a residency. I also want to send them to the food lab, because we need to soak up all that game. We need that game in the Bronx, So we're looking forward to, like, really collaborating and making things happen in 3D.
I have a question, and I hear you. I think it's interesting and incredibly inspiring. I, in my studio, have taken on a kitchen now for 15 years. We've been vegetarian for 15 years. And it was people like you who inspired this. I grew up with my father being, at that time it was called a cook. Now it's called like a chef. And my mother actually was a seamstress. Now it's called a designer. But anyway, so gradually the kitchen became more and more important. Point is here, I'm trying to, learning from you guys, to make a cookbook where it's like everything you can put a zero. You can do one dish, or you can do 10 dishes. Or you cook for 4 people, or 40, or 6, or 60. It's a little more complicated, I found out, but anyway, it sort of works. And the point is, how do we scale? And that's my question, because clearly you are onto something amazing. You're breaking the boundaries, and there's still a lot to do. But the truth is, all of us has kitchens too. And sometimes the distance between your kitchen and our kitchen, even though we completely understand each other, is bigger because we rely on the local supermarket. We rely on the sort of way the kitchen is organized. What are you doing to make our kitchen more like your kitchen? Because the scaling, I don't think, lays in the quantifying sort of upwards, but it's a sort of horizontal quantification so that we all can be better at contributing to the same change that you are leading within our sort of smaller kitchen around the world.
Is a question for me?
Yeah, the scale question, but also, yes.
I can take from the example of how the new Nordic was built. The beginning of the early 2003, 2002, nobody was believing that Scandinavian can offer produce. And supermarket was basically serving a really a small amount of like high quality ingredients. And so that was what the larger consumers can get. And then using chefs as a sort of like loudspeaker for showing actually to the customers that another reality was there. There was actually possibility to get ingredients, to get quality ingredients. It started sort of like a bottom-up revolution that leads the customers to ask for better quality. And in that way, this bottom-up changed completely the way of how industry and how large distribution start to think about customers. There has been, I think it's really important to acknowledge that without all these new startups, for example, there was been no possibility of like creating a new Nordic. Because the new startups, they change completely the rule of the market by disrupting a completely, let's say, standard vision of what was Scandinavian food. And today, if you walk in a supermarket, you can see that there is plenty of like new ingredients, something that is locally raised or something that is going towards like biodynamic, organic. And so the point of like scalability sometimes is not mostly related on the complexity of the dish, but more the accessibility of the product. And so this is also like going towards discussing what will be the future of retail markets. Because we really love to see these piles of food in supermarkets, but we need also to acknowledge that that pile of food is also leading us to create huge amount of food waste. So what we want to have for the future, we want to have like the pleasure of walking and see like, like a treasure everywhere, or we just need to be a little bit more pragmatic and be also pleased to what the landscapes can offer to us. And going into cooking what is actually realistic, more than just desiring something that is impossible. And that's why what we are doing is promoting as much as we can the growth of like new companies that can bring to the market new products for the customers. So diversity is always at the core of the message when you are working on this.
And I think that's what we heard earlier is the time you be able to give to that, I mean, we heard about the time to exploration earlier. A time of cooking, it's a very precious time because it's a time for yourself and it's a time for the people who you love. So I don't think there's a good or bad recipes. What is most important is the time you can put to it, the time you can put to research your produce in the market, the time you take with your family to cook together with your friends. It's all about the time you can give to that. And 1 or 2 hours per day is nothing compared to the pleasure that you can have.
Can I try? Can I add my 2 cents? When we think about scalability, I think it's also about the idea that you can actually do it. So when you think about, if I use hip hop as an example, it started in the Bronx, but now you have reggaeton, which is like Puerto Rican, started in Puerto Rico, Spanish hip hop. So I think it's really being able to be resourceful and taking what you have and also taking pride in what you can make from what you have, and just saying that the possibilities are limitless. I think it's understanding that even in situations where you might be not in the best situation, you might be impoverished, but with creativity, sometimes the possibilities are endless, and to take pride in what you're able to make with what you have. You know, I think that's a way to scale it. It's just planting a seed and then watering it.
Do we have more questions?
When I first met you, John, in LA, you were like with a group of your colleagues, I think. I didn't have time to meet everybody. So my question is simple. When you come for your residence, when are you coming and how many people are you taking with you?
I'm bringing the whole BX. You know, we taking over the Arleton. Hopefully soon. It's been crazy with travel, but maybe in August when things quiet down. I don't know, and it'll be great to like. I feel like and I want to bring some kids out here too, like some students that are interning with us to really see it, because I think we see enough of the world, but I think really bringing some kids, encouraging them to get their passports, seeing the possibilities of what's going on, where we had dinner last night with the beautiful garden and everything that's happening in the wilderness, but then also working socially with the kids and the projects. It's funny that y'all call it projects here. I only thought they said that in America. The suburbs, the projects, but I think like really, like, cause finding the connective tissue there, you know, even if there's a language barrier, I think that it's still going to be a soulful connection that's worth having, you know. So hopefully as soon as possible, maybe 10 or 12 of us.
Oh my God. One more question. Yeah, hold on.
Hello. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you for the wonderful food. I really enjoyed it all. And John, your story is amazing, and I'm very pleasantly surprised to see you here representing the Bronx. I live in Brooklyn, so it feels good. New York is out here. I wanted to ask you a question about what you're actually doing in your community. You were speaking about, you know, taking from the rich and bringing it back to the hood. And that's really great, but I'd like to know exactly how you're implementing that into society.
Thank you for this great question. It's a challenge because, like, I'm an entrepreneur. I never really lead with saying that, like, we're giving back to the community. But for me, like when I said earlier, you can't be what you can't see. You know, so I think us existing is a form of activism in itself, like actually being there where people would come out and reach out and touch. We open our space to different community organizations that need space to hold their workshops, board meetings. We'll provide food gratis. So a lot of what we're doing now with the capabilities in our actual bandwidth is just existing, being there, being a beacon, opening up our space to the people, and that's the vibe. But also, like, we did a project for Black History Month with Awake. I actually forget about a lot of the community stuff that we do because it's just how we do business. But we launched a T-shirt collaboration, kind of celebrating the different forms of Blackness. So we collabed with Awake, that's owned by a Latinx brother, Angelo. We dropped 2 T-shirts, but then we also fed 100 families, and we gave vouchers out for this restaurant. We didn't cook the food, but we gave vouchers out for this restaurant, La Morada, which is like a space for activism. It's opened by an immigrant from Mexico, from Oaxaca, that actually had a crazy run-in with ICE a couple weeks before we did the project. So basically we wanted to feed the community, but also give actual capital to this business that's a community business owned by a woman that's a beacon in community. So things like that are things that we do, you know. But we're hoping to do more. So I just gotta do more work and actually get more space so we can really activate and do our thing how we see fit.
Gentlemen, it's lunchtime.
Let's eat. Weird.
Thank you very much.